Naming a car company after yourself is fine if you're called Ferrari or Pagani or Lamborghini or even Morgan. It's not such a good idea if your last name is something stupid like Shufflebottom or Death. Unfortunately, this is advice that was ignored by a German man called Roland Gumpert. And here is the result: the Gumpert Apollo S. However, despite the stupid name, when this strange-looking car came to our test track, it lapped quicker than anything, including the original Veyron. But then that's not entirely surprising when you learn that it's basically a racing car with headlights and a twin-turbo Audi V8 that in basic tune makes 650 horsepower. That's enough for 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds and a top speed of 223. Better yet, there's the option to tweak it up to 800 horsepower. And plans are afoot to launch a version with 1,000 horsepower. So that's the Gumpert Apollo. Silly name, serious car. Everyone knows American cars are terrible, and cars from Europe, especially cars from Italy, are better. Better looking, better driving, and usually better sounding. 50 years ago, Henry Ford knew this. That's why he tried to buy Ferrari and thought he had, until Enzo Ferrari looked down his Roman nose and said, you know what? Actually, you can't have it. So, Henry decided to kick Ferrari where it hurt, on the racetrack. He wrote a blank check and told his engineers to build a better racing car and beat Ferrari at Le Mans. And astonishingly, that car, a British chassis with an American engine, the Ford GT40, did just that. 4 times. This car is not the GT40, but it looks like one. And it was made to celebrate Ferrari's humiliation, only this time on the road, not the track. It's the Ford GT, not the GT40, because unlike that car, it's more than 40 inches tall, so Americans could fit into it. But the idea is just the same. A great big V8, a 5.4-litre with a supercharger, and a relatively simple aluminium chassis. 220 miles an hour, and frankly astonishing handling for a car from America. And movie star looks. I have never driven a car that attracts more attention, and I drove this one a lot, because I bought one as remarkably, at the time, there wasn't a Ferrari that was better. And that's only something that happens once every 50 years. This is the greatest Anglo-German cooperation since, ever. It's the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren. From Germany, the big badge on the front, and the 5.4-litre supercharged V8 that gives this car 626 horsepower and a top speed of 208 miles an hour. From England comes the grey and silver, biros in the top pocket, engineering know-how of the McLaren F1 team, who came up with the carbon fibre body and built the whole thing in their Surrey factory. As you might imagine, the marriage between these two companies from these two nations was not easy. Mercedes insisted the SLR had to be front-engined and look exactly like this. McLaren insisted this was not ideal for a supercar. Mercedes wanted a comfortable, well-equipped cruiser. McLaren wanted a hardcore, lightweight racer. The two sides couldn't even agree on what the SLR sounded like at full chat. Mercedes said it was like a Messerschmitt. The British reckoned it was more like a Spitfire. Yet, despite the disagreements, the end result was a very fine car. Monstrously fast and loud when you drove like you'd sat on a bee, yet relaxed and easy to live with when you didn't. The only real problem were the carbon brakes, which worked like a switch. But whatever, the SLR is dead now and the two firms behind it have gone their separate ways. Although strangely, Mercedes now make the SLS, a hardcore cruiser, and McLaren, the MP4 12C, a civilized supercar, which is somehow slightly ironic. Before the Bugatti Veyron, there was this, the 241-mile-an-hour McLaren F1. Despite its similar top speed, the McLaren F1 is the very opposite of the Veyron. No turbochargers, no four-wheel drive, no traction control, no ABS, and no flappy paddle electronically controlled gearbox. In spirit, the McLaren is closer to a Caterham than a Bugatti, a Caterham with a gold-plated engine compartment. It was built without compromise, and nothing was to get in the way of the driving experience. That's why the driver sits in the middle, so they feel completely in control. McLaren was so determined to use this layout, they even had the law changed to make it possible. Then there's the 627 brake horsepower 6.1-litre V12 engine, built specially for this car by a crack team of BMW motorsport engineers, and the bespoke gearbox and a body made of carbon fibre. We take that for granted in supercars now, but back in the early 90s, it was so extraordinary they might as well have made it from lumps of Jupiter. Personally, I've never cared that much for the F1. It was too twitchy. But without it, Bugatti wouldn't have had something to aim for, and we wouldn't have had the incredible Veyron. In that respect, we owe McLaren our thanks.